What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff, and this evening we're gonna have a discussion about Kendrick Lamar becoming Chanel's new brand ambassador. Now, this is a great thing and a really cool thing for both himself and hip hop because it's gonna help bridge the gap between a few different industries and kind of help push the culture forward into what I see going on in the grand scheme of the real estate of the music industry, if you will. So, if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Now, the reason we tell you to do that is because the like button helps push this to other people. So, if other people want to get in on the conversation, maybe respond to your comment or clip this up and make cool things about it, that's how it happens. Subscribing helps you know when I upload and when you guys will see the freshest content. So, if you want to be up to date, make sure you're subscribed. So, getting into the conversation, Kendrick Lamar, of course, if you have been living under a rock, is a pretty much huge American rapper from the West Coast. Now, the reason this brand ambassador collaboration with him and Chanel is going to be a very good thing for a lot of artists is because similar to how Paul Wall and Slim Thug were selling grills with Nelly, this is going to help bridge the gap between fashion, hip hop, and manufacturing. And it's going to create a bit of a conversation and not necessarily, a solution, but it will create a conversation for how we can all look at the industry and help one another really make money out here, right? So what do I mean when I say that? Well, when I took a quick peek into the Chanel brand and a little bit of what the collaboration is, I learned that Kendrick had mentioned that they don't necessarily make menswear, so they decided to go with eyewear. And so with that, that also does open a huge lane for the customer base, meaning it's not just going to be a hip hop thing like Cristal or Fubu or something like that. It can pretty much every guy who's into fashion and eyewear can get involved, right? And so again, that bridges the gap between music and fashion. If you love hip hop, if you love Kendrick and you want to support, or if you just love Chanel and you just happen to see the new thing that they're coming out with and you want to support, that bridges that gap right there, right? But then what really happens if you think on a grander scale, if you remove the names Kendrick and Chanel and just add you and another brand that you make, how would this look? How would this really manifest itself? And how do you really benefit from what's going on, right? And so this is one of the things that I want a lot of specifically musicians and artists to pay attention to, but I do want the fans and the audience to pay attention to because this can bleed into maybe your own career in corporate America, or maybe you're running a business as an entrepreneur. And so this is what I mean. So let's say you are a person who makes music and you're an artist and you just, make jingles and you do your diddy bop and you out in the club making it shake, right? You're doing your thing. Eventually that influence you have is going to become valuable to, let's say, businesses who need customers, um, people who have services that need customers and things like that, right? So how do you create something that's going to be, let's say, a product that solves a problem for not just a customer but for a business that has a lot of customers? And so what Kendrick is doing is he's providing not only his influence to get us to all talk about this and things like that, but they also have ways that they collaborate together in order to benefit each other as far as business goes. So this isn't like a brand new relationship between Kendrick and Chanel. They've actually done a few different collaborations together, but this one being such a I guess you would say marriage makes it pretty much solidified and it makes it that much more valuable for us, right? So in the past, they've done things like fashion shows and they've had appearances with one another. But the biggest thing that I've noticed was that they have done an exclusive short film called The Button that was for Chanel. And essentially, the idea behind it was that it's supposed to accentuate and promote the brand and kind of show the legacy and the timeline behind Chanel itself. Now, the cool thing about it is the film was directed by Dave Free, who does the collaboration with Kendrick and PG Lang, their creative company. But the thing about that is that allowing him to create the video and Kendrick Lamar to create the score for the film, the button, it allows for everybody involved to kind of create their skill set or to use their skill set in a way that is independent of one another. And so, what do I mean by that? So, when you see a collaboration like Travis Scott and McDonald's, I'm pretty sure Travis Scott doesn't need to know how to make a Big Mac. He doesn't need to go in there and prove that he can serve a Big Mac to a customer to the standard of, let's say, someone who's actually employed by McDonald's. So that relationship kind of works in tandem with one another. They can kind of stand parallel to one another and be good at what they do. So in this example for Chanel and Kendrick, they can make a short film, which is essentially a commercial for their brand and to kind of explain to the customer why they should be buying their products. They can stand alone and say, I'm going to film and write and direct the video while you create the music. And then Chanel is going to provide us either, let's say, the models for the video, perhaps the props, while we use all of these elements within our own resources and things like that. So it was pretty interesting to kind of like learn all that and put it all together because there's also an exclusive unreleased song that came out with that video that Kendrick made, and so there's a lot of value that comes to having things like that. Like even me saying that should kind of prompt you to go find this and things like that. So when we think of ourselves, sometimes as artists, we kind of downplay it. Sometimes we think that it's not possible, or sometimes we try to think that the work we are doing isn't really effective or not as efficient. And the truth is that you kind of have to create your own lane. And that's kind of what's shown here is that they've developed a relationship. It wasn't like if you thought that this whole brand ambassador move came strictly from not like us, then you're foolish and you're behind the eight ball when it comes to learning this information. But that's why I'm here. I made this channel for you, for people like you. I'm here to help educate the hip hop fan base because that helps make my job easier when I, want to do things that I enjoy in terms of hip hop. So all that really means though is that they've developed a relationship between one another and they see the value in, cherishing that. And it can go, you know, beyond business, but at the basis of it, it's business. Just that they do good business on, let's say, Top Dog Entertainment side, and then Chanel does good business on theirs, and because of that, they kind of maintain and nurture the relationship. Now, if you reel all that back and take away the big old names like Kendrick Lamar and Chanel, and just add your name and a brand you support, how would this same equation work? Are you getting suspicious of numbers? Do you think like you're gonna get underpaid or something like that? Are you suspicious of maybe like reading contracts and things like that? Are you suspicious of, you know, maybe some kind of office politics or corporate politics? Well, here's the thing. This is why it's important to nurture relationships. You will learn all these things as you kind of expose and exploit yourself into these opportunities. And I'm using these words and terms specifically because this is the vocabulary that kind of helps you learn what's happening in terms of business. So when someone is using your song in a commercial, your song is being exploited in a good way because essentially if you've set up good business, they're paying you to use your song in their commercial, or they're giving you some kind of like notoriety, clout, or credit, or something like something you value in return, right? It's a transaction, but that's called exploitation. Oftentimes, the uneducated would hear exploitation and they will confuse it with just negative exploitation, and that's the only version they can think of. So, meaning someone's using your song in a commercial and they're acting like they created it. That's the only version of exploitation many people will think of. But truth is that exploitation is a great thing, especially if you can really mitigate risk and work with people who are valuable, like Kendrick working with Chanel. I don't think this same collaboration would have worked if, let's say, he just picked a small business just because they were black or something, or just because they were from Compton, because there would have to be certain things that would kind of guarantee, a result. Meaning, like, if you're doing a sponsorship for Instagram or Facebook, they're going to want to see how many followers and people are watching your account. That brings them value to whatever service that they provide to those people. So Now when you're thinking of yourself as an artist, then you got to think, okay, if I just make music all day, I sit in the house and I, play on my little Akai MPC and I make beats all day, how is that gonna help the hospital heal more people? How is that gonna help, um, fat people lose weight? How is that gonna help um, babies get infant? And if you can't really answer any of these questions, then you can kind of figure out ways outside of music that can make your brand, your artistry, and your musicianship a little more valuable to people that might not be interested in just hearing your music. And so this is kind of the thing I want you to kind of wrap your mind around when it comes to uh, setting yourself up for relationships and exploitation with good people and setting yourself up. Now, the thing I think most people will run into is trying to figure out who to work with. Because it's easy to be like, oh, I'm a rapper. Let me go to a strip club. They play rap music, right? That makes sense. But I don't think it's very easy for people to identify an opportunity and identify the value of a relationship at the forefront, like right at the look of something. I think it takes time for people to really get to know maybe a company and how they do business, or maybe get to know a culture and a vibe. Like, for example, I'm from the East Coast of the United States, right? If I were to go to Oklahoma and sit in like a church service somewhere, there would be a bit of a different culture than what I'm used to. So there would have to be a matter of like, all right, if I want to bring value to this culture, what do they need and how can I do it that's A, appropriate, and then B, gonna be of value to myself as well. Like if I go to, Oklahoma church and they need a piano player, I can play piano. So, I can get paid to play piano, or I can, take credit for playing piano there, whatever, whatever value thing I want. But that right there is an exploitation of my skill that is playing an instrument so that I can provide a solution for a business or a corporation, in this example, a church, so that they can provide their service, which is a service to their constituents, which is their customers and audience, right? That is an awesome relationship. There's a third part of this conversation, which is the manufacturing side of it. So then you also have to make sure that there is a good relationship between who makes products we make, right? So like, who makes my piano? Who makes the digital audio workstation for me to work on? Who makes this computer screen? Microphone I'm talking on, the cables, um, the metal in these microphones, all these minerals and things that come together to form these hard squares and boxes and lines so that I can make this technology come together and have this conversation with you through sights and signals and wires and vibrations and things like that. How does that all work when we're just talking about making a song for sunglasses? So this is the conversation I think many artists kind of need to wrap their mind around now, and we'll continue to have it, and I'll break it down further. But I think it's one of those conversations that you need to have now, because it's gonna be one of those aha moments when you realize, oh man, I left some money on the table. I could have been investing in like Gibson guitars wood manufacturer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's different things we can get into that affect us as musicians and artists and the audience. But it can really translate a lot of different ways depending on how you look at it. But if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, like I said. And I will see you guys tomorrow evening. And make sure you follow all the new content I got coming out. I got music coming, and I got, more conversations, fitness content, as well as workouts. I will see you guys soon. Peace.